Hello.
Hi there.
Ciao. Ciao.
So Professoressa Mariella is here with me. So Metin, can you please start with your presentation? So
Okay.
today we are going to talk about women in the Western country democracy now. And today in the afternoon, we're going to retake again this subject. So I give you the floor. I stop if I have some question coming from the YouTube classroom, okay?
Okay. All right.
Thank
you very much, Frederick. It is always great to start the day. It is almost noon here, of course, but like it is our day in the sense we start talking about things and everything with people with smiling faces. So thank you very much for that. I have been energized already. But by the way, you talk, and by the musicality of the Italian language. Thank you for that all. Today we are going to be, of course, talking about like women in Western literature. And when we talk about literature and the West, we discussed the concept of the West 2 days ago. So we are going to be sort of building on that tradition of ideas and how that canon, the Western canon, kind of codifies women along the way, like from the very beginning of Western literature. Of course, we cannot like talk about everything, but I'll be kind of surveying through history and talking about representations or manifestations of women in both Judeo-Christian and Greco-Roman traditions. If it is okay for you guys, let me begin with the Judeo-Christian tradition. You know, Judeo-Christian tradition is very much interested in the idea of the origins. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was waste and void, and the Spirit of God was moving above the waters. And this is how the Old Testament begins the story of our existence on earth. And according to this story, the world is like not older than 6,000 years. Actually, it is even less. And what happens in Genesis 1 and 2, specifically speaking, is God creates several things, actually, the universe at different layers. And then on the sixth day, God does something that still concerns us. He creates the human we call Adam. So why are these important? Like after 6 days, and the first 5 days have been very hectic, and the sixth day, on the sixth day, God is going to create Adam, because Adam is supposed to be linked up with them, which is blood, and at the same time with soil or the dirt. So Adam is connected etymologically with both. So Adam becomes God's technological product. Like a potter work, he creates Adam out of clay, and then Adam is there, and he puts Adam where? In the Garden of Eden. In the Garden of Eden. So the garden is there, Adam is there, and there is no economic process involved, but God says, or the Bible says, referring to God, no, God has placed him in the garden to till it and keep it, So God creates Adam for agricultural purposes, it seems, because tilling and keeping it refers to those activities. But then again, the moment Adam is there, God also notices something, that it is not good for man to be alone, says God. It is not good for man to be alone. And then he goes ahead and decides to create a woman, a helper, in the language of the Bible, a helper for him. A helper for him, like help him with what? We are not given that account. But clearly, God operates on Adam during his sleep. I mean, he has Adam sleep and then takes one of his ribs and turns that rib into a woman. And then Adam looks at this new creature. Mark Twain like makes a story out of this, you know, biblical story, and it is a very, very likable one. If you have not read it yet, I mean, you can go ahead and do it, because he calls it the Diary of Adam and Eve, and he analyzes these processes, kind of expanding upon the biblical story. So Eve is there, and she's supposed to be a helper. And let's remember, like the Hebrew word for Adam is ish. That means man. And the woman is a derivative, both like in biological and etymological sense. She has been derived from Adam's rib. That's why she's a derivative. And also she is referred to, as the Hebrew language would put it, as Isha. And that word is also a derivation. Ish, Isha, Ish, Isha. So the female version is Isha, derived from the man Ish. Interestingly, the English language is no different in terms of this like derivative notion of creation of women either. What do we mean by that? Like when you talk about man, where does the word man come from? Where does the word man come from? Let's remember. The word man is connected to human, and that is connected to humus, the soil, the dirt, so to say. And more interestingly, the word woman is based on the word man, the word man, and it means actually in Middle English, wife man. So woman, the word woman has no existential status even in the language. It is the word is based on man, which means wife man. So in order to become a woman, you have to be a wife, therefore a personality and identity. That's what the word means, you know, the woman, wife, man, or with man, as Old English speakers would pronounce it.
Yes, it's different in Italian. Metin.
Yes,
different in Italian, because it's completely different. Uomo, umano, uomo, e donna. So it's completely different.
Donna, yes.
It's the English is about limited. It's completely different.
Donna, however, probably is connected with the word given.
Yes.
Okay.
So uomo is human, yes.
The woman is a given there. The woman is a given. So there is a separate like existential status assigned to Adam, and the woman is a given in that sense. I am not familiar with the Italian language, but like I have studied Latin to a certain extent. So I'm trying to just sense the meaning out of the word.
Sure.
So you have those interesting beginnings, the linguistic beginnings, that shed light on why women have historically, traditionally been conceived as such, not only in literature, but also in the cinema later on. And remember, again, the English intricacies, like the intricacies of the English language. When you walk as a man on the streets, you are simply walking on the streets. But if you walk on the streets as a woman, you are supposed to be I am sorry to use the expression, a street walker. And a street walker means something not very nice, a prostitute. Okay? So the language carries within itself those like biases traditionally harbored, traditionally accommodated, and like traditionally installed in our minds. So now let's go back to the biblical story. We have come to this point owing to the resemblance between the words Isha and man and woman. So the linguistic bias, linguistic derivation, and biological or existential derivation, because all these stories so far, the linguistic evidence shows that all this is about like considering women as a derivative. Woman has or doesn't have to be a separate identity. So that identity is linked up with man or in relation to man. And interestingly, that identity linked up to man is supposed to lead up to God, because in the Bible, God barely speaks to Eve. Whenever he speaks to Adam, like gives commands to Adam. And the first time, like he warns people in paradise, Adam and Eve, I mean, he warns them about not eating out of the tree. Remember, a specific form of tree. And if there is two, he expresses later on for protection. It is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So God envies, like God actually doesn't want you to have knowledge. And one more interesting point to make here is, like, as far as linguistics is concerned, is knowledge in the English language is etymologically rooted to have sexual intercourse. Later in the text, the Bible tells you something very interesting. You know, after everything has been done and Adam and Eve thrown out of paradise into this miserable state of ours on earth, Adam, says the Bible, knew his wife Eve, she conceived and bore Cain. So that means knowing here is like having sexual intercourse. As it appears, God is kind of asking you not to have that, and that is linked up with knowledge. But what does that knowledge lead you up to? Those are important points again, because according to mythology, we believe Hamilton puts it that way, at least. You know, the Greeks created their gods in their own image. The Bible creates man or humankind in God's image. If this is the case, then are we supposed to be sort of competing with God in one sense? If not, why does God divide that single existence into two and then let them like get pitted against each other? Those are probably perennial questions we cannot like discover, explore like for good. But then again, this story of the fall, beginning with Eve eating out of the forbidden fruit and her connection with the serpent, of course, has marked women as both troublesome and poisonous as well. This is poisonous because the venom is linked up with what? The venom is linked up with the serpent. In agricultural societies, of course, it is always important to take care of like the environment as you're doing farming, because I mean you can get killed through the poison or the venom of these serpents. So the Bible imaging or like picturing to itself the agricultural environment in the Middle East. You know, the paradise according to the Bible is in the Middle East. Remember that, like the Mesopotamian region. The 4 rivers flow out of the Garden of Eden. So they are called like, I mean, if you go to the southeastern part of Turkey, those are the rivers the Bible talks about. And partly this is Syria and partly the Iraqi northern border. So that's the area, and that was like rich in agriculture and fertile land. So that is linked up with the paradisal notion, and you need probably workers on that, fertile soil. That's why you have these two guys initially speaking. So they are thrown out of paradise, but this is not something like from heaven. So it is like a transposition, if you will, of these two human beings, first human beings. So they're kind of dislocated, it seems. So they go from one place to another, not necessarily like brought down from heaven on earth. But this story, as everybody knows, marks out Eve, and of course all women in her person, as the transmitter of a certain spiritual disease. And what's that disease? I mean, that is sin. So sin is almost like genetically transmitted from generation to generation, and our whole philosophy, whole religious hermeneutics is kind of based on this idea of the fall. So in order to rise, you need to wait for Jesus to come centuries later, and then do something about it. So the first example of a woman is Eve, and she's the figure of a temptress, a seductress. We don't discuss here somehow why the guy is so gullible vis-a-vis her presence. We always like focus on Eve and how she's connected with the serpent, and her seductive powers that is linked up with the serpent again. But we don't discuss this like gullible nature of this guy, and whether the guy has any involvement, because again the answer is there in the Bible. The Bible pictures Adam as this innocent guy. After they eat out of the forbidden fruit, let's remember again, God comes in paradise and Adam is in hiding, and he asks, "Where are you?" And he says, Adam, like, "Here I am. Why are you hiding? Or did you eat out of the forbidden fruit?" And the answer is very telling, and that answer actually has been resounding in Western literature for millennia now. What is the answer? Let's remember that woman, thou gazed to be with me. She gave me the fruit and I ate. Now, the accusation here actually goes not only to Eve, but also to God, because God has created Eve out of Adam for Adam. So this is supposed to be like an accusation directed against God. So God is supposed to be the head of the tribunal, but then again, Adam judges God as well. So you are responsible for this woman. That's why. So you should take that into consideration as well. So God now turns to Eve and the serpent, and then says that he's going to punish them. So the generations to follow are going to like be pitted against them, will be enemies. So the generations of the serpents to come will try to hurt the generations of human beings to come from the line of Adam and Eve. Do you have any questions or comments so far? I am trying to squeeze in these 2 hours a lot of things, so I may be going too fast. I am sorry for that.
No, it's okay from here. Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, yeah. Good morning.
Thank you. You can go on. Thank you very much.
All right. This is the beginning of like the representation of woman or creation of woman in one aspect of Western literature. And of course, that's also the topic of Western religions, mythology, science and philosophy, as well as psychology, because Freud is going to build some of these ideas about women through using these like ancient texts, ancient mythology. So they're also linked up throughout the centuries. And this is how you canonize the misogyny and gynophobia that develops in literature clearly. So why Judeo-Christian tradition has that starter for women in those terms? Let's look at the Greco-Roman tradition, how they developed the notions of what a woman is like. You know, according to the Greek mythology, the first woman was actually Gaia, the first being, so to say. In a sense, that refers to a matriarchal beginning. That refers to a matriarchal beginning. Gaia is a woman figure. Gaia is a woman figure, and this is one of the mythology writers that talks about it, right? We are talking about Theagnis, which is supposed to be predating even Homeric works, or some say it comes after the Homeric works, but you know, that work clearly tells you something about the genealogy of gods. And according to that story, the genealogy begins with Gaia, the mother figure, mother nature in that sense. So mother nature is now that woman Gaia. This later turns into chaos because women are supposed to be chaotic. You know, this ridiculous bias is kind of resounding all over the place. It is not just historical, it is also a current thing. Like whenever you want to like defame women or like you find faults with women, then you talk about this chaotic nature of women, like women are not easy to understand, or like they are not understandable at all. These are like man-made or patriarchal biases that have developed throughout the centuries, and it is not actually gone. It just takes different shapes and forms. Unfortunately, this is the case. So when it comes to their mothers, men would love to like eulogize them, but you know, their wives or their partners or their sweethearts and all that, the case is different, because the ability to give birth is probably something that men have been unable to do, and probably have developed a jealousy for. So those are separate issues we can probably discuss later. But let me now move on. Chaos, Gaia, is dominated by Cronus, and then Uranus comes. Okay, or I'm sorry, Uranus, and then Cronus comes. Cronus kills the father, and then Zeus comes and kills Cronus. So dominates time as well as women. So women refers the chaos, the Gaia figure refers to this spatial relationship, spatial existence. Whereas Cronus, domination by Zeus of Cronus, also refers to the temporal one. So Zeus dominates both time and space to become the sole god of the Greeks, on top of all the Olympian echelon of divinity. So this is how the Greeks start the story of women. Then again, the concept of evil. Remember, it is with Eve that evil begins in Judeo-Christian tradition. let's look at the Greco-Roman tradition in this text this time. I'm talking about Hesiod, by the way. Hesiod has the figure of another woman who helps spread evil all over the universe. Let's remember who that woman is. I don't know whether like our students have studied mythology or not.
Not all of them, because it's not compulsory in Italian system at school. So
okay.
yeah, only if you have classical background. Thank you.
So Hesiod gives us the picture of a woman who carrying the basket with a lot of advice, of course. Otherwise, she is so curious to know what lies inside the basket, and then despite the warning, she has to go against that order. I mean, this is the problem with the depiction of women. You know, in the one case, women are supposed to go against the status quo, the order existing. That's why you have the fall, remember? And also this time, you know, another woman is supposed to be warned, but then again, she's not going to listen. So the woman there is going to be characterized as not obedient, whereas masculine figures or male figures are supposed to be obedient. They go with the status quo. That status quo is linked up with God. Therefore, Pandora is the one who now helps emerge this problem of evil on earth. This is how evil spreads all over the earth. Of course, like having this psychoanalytical reading of the story, you can also refer to the basket in psychosexual terms as well. So both traditions link women with disobedience, with seduction, with also the spread of evil, emergence and spread of evil. So we are talking about the Greco-Roman and the Judeo-Christian tradition sort of having this like confluence. So both rivers in that sense fall into that trajectory as history is going to show us throughout, you know, the centuries of Western literature. So
can I just
yes,
suggest something here? I mean,
of course.
This is fine, but this is for I'm referring to the students. They have to bear in mind that the text is in Hebrew and that the majority of the translations of the Bible into the different languages are made by men.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, according to recent translation, feminist translations of the Bible, feminist translation of the Bible, if we go and check, in one of my conferences on female translations, there was a debate on the word Adam. Adam in the Hebrew original is with an article, Ha-Adam. Ha-Adam is not the name of Adam, but means groundling, ground, earth. So yes. Adam is not named at the beginning. What is immediately afterwards, a Ha-Adama. So what I'm saying here, I don't want to go and debate it now, is that one, translation is something subjective. Translators of the Bible were male for centuries. We have some exceptions in the 16th century, but basically the translation I have in mind is by Mary Philip Corsack, 1999, and there she analyzes when we have the words for Adam. Now, if Adam is not a name, Ha-Adam is a Hebrew word. I mean, so what I'm saying is, let's try to bear in mind that translation is essential, and our knowledge is, I'm not saying infected by, but we are guided by the translations we have had in time according to a certain perspective.
That has formed the canon.
That's right. That's right. I know.
That has set up the canon, and then
that's right.
Institutionalized the canon. And Oxford Bible with the Apocrypha, actually earlier talks about those like etymological origins, like Adam and Adama. Adama also is about nothingness.
That's it.
Blood, nothingness, and it is also open to like metaphysical inquiry in many ways, because the idea of nothingness in the religious tradition is a very important one, but it is more like metaphysical rather than religious hermeneutics per se. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. It has based the canon. I mean, what we all have interpreted for ages. But the point is, as these are translation students, their course is on translation.
Yeah.
I want to insist that everything can be reread with new tools in time. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, each translation at the same time is a traitorous activity. They already know that, right? Traditio.
Okay. Okay.
So being traitor at the same time. Okay. Yes, please. Are you done? Shall I move on? Oh, okay. So
please go on.
When we see the tradition of these like goddamn women in Western literature, but then again, interestingly, the same tradition is going to create heroes of men. Heroes of men. Interestingly, these guys are like intellectual, spiritual seductors. So the Western tradition loves these two figures of guys who disobey, but then again, they don't like women who disobey the status quo, the present order, or whatever you call it. I am talking about Socrates, the figure of Socrates and Jesus Christ. Okay? So when women disobey the status quo, the order present, they are outlawed. But when men like Jesus Christ and Socrates disobey the Athenian order or the Roman order in the Middle East or the Jewish order, Jewish tradition in where he was living, then they become like heroes because they are now questers for the truth. They are questers for the truth. So they represent resistance to the authority. Jesus Christ does that to the Jewish authorities and the Roman authorities, and Socrates, the Athenian authorities. So we have bias also in terms of the same act being either outlawed or praised. So the tradition decides. It is not even, this is an act that you should outlaw. It is an act when a woman does that, like disobeys, then you punish that act. But then again, when a man does that, then you go with a heroic stature built upon that memory. And of course, the idea that God is a father. God is a father, and that is somehow maybe. And I would disagree here with some of the like feminist theoreticians. I believe, for instance, that patriarchy is not necessarily a male thing. it is not necessarily a male thing. Patriarchy goes beyond the male and female. It is an overarching existence beyond the two. But that's a different discussion. Now, we have talked about like Eve and Pandora's case, and how with Jesus being the Son of God, the father figure is kind of sort of canonized, and God becomes a father. And interestingly, though Jesus is supposed to be a prodigal son without a father, however, there is a mother figure, Mary. Somehow we don't praise Virgin Mary until very late in centuries. Interestingly, this happens around 11th, 12th centuries. So Jesus being the son of God and God at the same time, but the mother that gives birth to Jesus is not a god or a goddess. So we don't see the icons of Virgin Mary until very late in centuries. So the tradition is quite biased along those lines. So you have another woman figure. Actually, there is a lot, but we cannot like count them up all throughout this limited like course. The figure of Potiphar's wife. So Potiphar's wife is going to try to seduce Joseph, as you know, after a lot of like intricate situations he's involved, he suffers through. Now it comes to another step for rectification of Adam's fault. This time, Joseph is not going to fall for a woman. So the woman this time, feeling unable to kind of seduce the guy, that is Joseph, is going to sling mud at him. Let's remember, you know, this guy has tried to molest me, and this is the mark because there's a tear in his shirt. So he's going to be punished for something that he has never intended to do and actually has tried to avoid. So the story of Samson and Delilah is another case. So interestingly, like our lives on earth as men, women, are supposed to be not contradictory but complementary. But you know, these traditions of like men, specifically women, tell us like through and through that, you know, women are dangerous, women are dangerous, women do this, women do that, and they all underline, I believe, something of a fear. It is, yes, gynophobia. It is gynophobia, but then again, I believe it is men's fear of themselves projected onto women. I'll explain that further later on. Let me move on a little faster. You know, we associate Aristotle with logic, right? He's the father of logic. But like talking about a woman, how does Aristotle describe women? Like what is woman according to Aristotle? According to Aristotle, a woman is an imperfect man. Thank you. So we represent perfection. So women have lack of something that we have. Therefore, they are imperfect men. So the identification or description of a woman in relation to man is again another phenomenon in Aristotelian logic, which is very illogical, as we can say. Again, the founding father of philosophy, Plato, he was not very happy with women. Actually, some scholars claim that, you know, he debased women, therefore he felt like more at home with men. That's why most of the dialogues, Platonic dialogues, are like conglomerate works among men. Like the men get together, they convene, they have a symposium, say, or like they walk up and down the streets of Athens, and then they kind of run across each other, and then they start talking, and this goes on and on and on. And in those dialogues, there is only one case where you have the mention of a woman, Diotima, and she appears for a very little period. And probably you are also like acquainted with this tradition ascribed to Plato as well. He says, marry at all costs. So if you find the right woman, you become happy. Otherwise, you become a philosopher. And then you start chuckling, okay? You know, so it is not whether this is something that he has put it. It is how man has these expressions or anecdotal misogynies kind of turning over in their minds and then expressing throughout centuries. Laughter in these instances is actually a weapon of revenge. And I mean it serious. Like laughter is a form of revenge. When you arouse laughter, yes, you're actually taking some sort of revenge. This is kind of a theoretical approach to laughter. I can quote the references later on if necessary. So the Greco-Roman and the Judeo-Christian tradition, we cannot go to each and every work, of course, but then again, let alone, you know, having sympathy for women, somehow the Greek tragedy disengages women from the birth of children as well. What do I mean by that? You know, according to Greek laws, if you like kill your parents, then you're supposed to be killed in return, like patricides. But you know, in Aeschylean work or Astaia, you know, it's a trilogy. You know, it's a long story, but let me sort of summarize it. We have Orestes, who kills his mother because his mother has killed this heroic figure of a father, Agamemnon. What has Agamemnon done? He has won this Trojan War at the cost of losing or sacrificing his daughter. And then Orestes is supposed to be judged before a court that Apollo presides. After many adventures in the third part of the trilogy, you know, Apollo says, you are going to be acquitted. Why? Because if it were your father that you killed, then you would have been killed in return for execution. But since you killed your mother, Clytemnestra, and a mother is not akin to the child. A mother is not akin to the child. That is, you are not related to your mother. Therefore, you will be acquitted, and he gets acquitted. I mean, just look at this situation, like presented in the drama, and these tragedies were shown in theaters, and probably Italy has a lot of theaters from the Roman times. Colosseum is probably one of them, right? I don't know whether like you watch any theatrical works, probably not, but like we have a lot of amphitheaters in Turkey of the Greek and Roman times, and they can accommodate like 5, 6, 10,000 people and even more, depending on the times. So all people come, almost all people come and watch these plays, and they internalize what they see in the theater. Sometimes even the prisoners were released so that they could watch these theatrical pieces staged.
Yeah, we
So
have sorry, there's a Teatro Romano, a Roman theater in Benevento.
Benevento, okay.
And many others in Italy.
Yeah. Remember, this is you know, the theaters also functioned like places of education and propaganda at the same time. So it is like the state, ideological state apparatus, according to some neo-Marxist philosophers. I mean, Gramsci is coming out of this tradition, and there's other like very powerful neo-Marxist thinkers that liken these to ideological state apparatuses. So they are there like the schools controlled by the state. They function to create, to generate ideal products of the liking of the state, or whatever the regime or the mechanism, if you will. This could be just about anything. This is like probably the same everywhere. I mean, if you go to America, you become again ideal as a consumer. So the system is sort of arranged accordingly. In some countries, the state wants to create or produce, if you will, manufacture, if you will, humans that would idealize and follow the precepts of a certain ideal state ideology. So it goes on and on and on. So it is important that these theaters did represent those pieces on the stage, and they were really very influential. We all remember. But then again, how does the Greek history and mythology define that moment of evil again? Like how does the Trojan War, that is almost a founding Greek myth in a sense, like founding Greek myth. How does that come out? You're talking about the rivalry between, female goddesses and females like mortal females. Let's remember, Helen is supposed to be this beautiful woman. So Paris chooses her above others, and here the woman Helen being married becomes kind of a battleground for both parties on both sides of the Aegean Sea. So who gets Helen actually gets the phallus, in a sense. That phallus is the emblem of power. Emblem of power. So Helen is abducted, and then the whole system is going to blame Helen over centuries again of the destruction of like tens of thousands of Greek men, because she has started all this, and also the ships, total destruction ascribed to a single woman, the acts of a single woman. And in Dr. Faustus, the memory of Helen is kind of reenacted Remember one of the seductive points he's been, it seems, imagining along his like doctoral studies is about Helen. And then when he sees Helen, he is kind of stunned to see her face. And he goes, was this the face that launched 1,000 ships? Oh, dear Helen. So Helen becomes that symbol of that like irresistible woman. But then again, part of that is linked up with destruction. Destruction. I'm gonna kind of move faster. Euripides is more conscientious in terms of his treatment of women, owing to his personal background. But then again, let me remind you of Ovid's Aeneid. Who does Aeneas save from the wreckage of Troy? His father and his son. Because his wife has already functioned as an incubation machine. You don't need that any longer. You don't need that any longer. And the son is going to like continue his line. Therefore, on his father, on his shoulder, his father, and in his hand, his son, he is going to come out of that wreckage to go where? To Rome, to establish the Roman state, the Roman Empire, right? But before that, he visits Carthage. And in Carthage, he is supposed to deal with a woman called Dido. Interestingly, Dido gives up everything for him. But then again, he has to carry on a certain mission. And then he sets sails before letting her know. And then when she realizes that Aeneas is not with her, she goes on top of the mountain in Carthage, the highest point as far as I remember, and puts her on a pyre. So she kills herself. But Aeneas has to go to Rome. So you can see here, like how another woman figure is kind of juxtaposed with a male figure. Thus, the male figure is supposed to be associated with a mission, the founding myth of the Roman heritage, and also the temporary tests or pitfalls. A woman is a pitfall here. Though that woman, the same woman, actually has given up on everything to be with Aeneas. The Middle Ages, as you know, is mainly dominated by misogynistic treatments of women, because after the separation, division of the Roman Empire into two, and then the domination of Christianity being officially accepted as the official religion of the Roman Empire, you see the Christian religion becoming like a state, like statuary, and the Roman state becoming sort of Christians. So it functions both ways. Thus, you have this Holy Roman Empire. But this doesn't work in the same like collaborative manner as far as women are concerned, because women's condition or perception have not changed that much in the Middle Ages, and actually she has even been more pushed on throughout the Middle Ages. There is a certain change in the 12th century in literature, and that is the Romance tradition. Romance tradition, and you know, Romance is actually connected with the Latin variations of the Latin language, the vernaculars of the Latin language, or the language is derived from Latin. So Romance tradition begins to put women on pedestal, but that change is connected with Eleanor of Aquitaine, a queen first in you know, in Europe, and later on moving to England, and then she's interested in arts and literature, and of course she urges literature written in praise of women. That's a very interesting moment that still requires deeper studies. I have done certain inquiries, and there's a lot of serious scholars done on that, and Jane Weston is one of those guys, but that is not something acknowledged very much. I am talking about specifically the 12th century, the influence of the Romance tradition and the troubadour tradition in Western literature. Okay, so that is about like religious texts, religious traditions, and the Middle Ages. Shall we remember some of the you know, fairy tales focusing on women, or like presenting women in them? Do you remember any fairy tales presenting women? Shall I maybe go ahead and remind you of Snow White? What happens in Snow White, for instance? What happens in the Cinderella story? Women torturing women, because these goddamn women, they don't like fight with men, but with each other over the love of men. You know, this is what the story tells you. So evil are women, but you know, there is a rarity. There is a rarity here of Cinderella, and in order to like step ahead and become part of a better world, he has to be linked up with a prince. And interestingly, probably the prince has this food fetish. That's how you know, he goes ahead and finds the match of the shoe that she left in the world that she does not actually belong to. But then again, that world is bestowed upon her through a prince again. It is not a world that she has created, she has built up, but she's integrated into that world. What kind of function does she have in that world? That's a different matter. That's a different matter. All right. Do you have any questions or like comments so far? So the fairy tales. Many girls today are also like trained in the tradition of sleeping beauties. Sleeping beauties. After all, a woman is supposed to mean something only when she's beautiful. So she cannot have the proper intelligence. She cannot have the proper means to survive and do things. So that beauty is supposed to appeal to men. Therefore, it is like a bait.
Yes, but
that's the kind of construct you have. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Yes, but 150 years of feminist movement have changed this. I don't think you know, girls are trained in this way anymore. So maybe in some countries, but maybe in advertisements, but things have changed greatly. Even fairy tales have been rewritten all the time. So I think that we can say that If we're speaking of the past, it's fine. But if we're speaking of from the a whole century and a half, we can change
I hope so.
perspective.
I hope so, because I mean, many girls, like they do, thanks to capitalism, are like feeling that they have to be like these like Barbie dolls. So look at the ancient statues of women and the modern toys, representations of like female dolls, Barbie figures. So if you're not like Barbie, the Barbie model, then you're out of the equation. So that still has a depressive thing on girls, I believe. And I mean, I have everybody actually does sometimes. There comes up news once in a while about girls who try to slim down to look like Barbie. And so the attention is kind of diverted to that aspect. So whereas you're not given the same kind of advice to men. So men are as are. So it is women that you are supposed to change. I think that that is still a valid argument, and many commercial ads represent women as objects to be discovered. So like talking about the perfumes, for instance, why do you as women, for instance, need to wear perfumes? Because you have a certain purpose. Men are not necessarily prone to those things, though new gender specifics try to now reach out to another figure of gender, a third one, a fourth one. I don't know, like where it's gonna go, but without properly actually understanding the true nature of what men and women are. Probably we are trying now to explore like further areas of gender. So that's a different topic. I hope, however, that no girl ever thinks that it is only beauty that matters to men, or I mean, why should it matter to men only? Actually, it should matter to them first. Like, what am I? What am I as a person? Not in relation to anybody, not in relation to or in reference to anybody. So another fairy tale. I mean, you can come up with a lot of them, and they are translated like almost universally, probably with some modifications. But then again, the tradition is also carried on to the cinema. I mean, look for instance at a lot of Hollywood productions and even in independent productions. Like in Blade Runner, we talked about Blade Runner, the first one, and the sequel, for instance, 2049. We have the figure of a woman called Joy. She's a software product of a girl, and she probably is someone that all men across the world would desire to take hold of. I mean, you come home, she welcomes you, and then she's beautiful, she cooks for you, and then she lights your cigarette, she sits before you, and she starts dancing with you, and she changes clothes like in seconds. So she does everything to sort of please you. This becomes like a new joy. The figure of joy becomes a cinematic version of a sleeping beauty. This is why I was sort of stressing that thing. So the identification of woman with demon is what we should keep in mind. It is man's fear of women. Actually, it is their fear of themselves, I believe. It is not because like women are like imposing fear on them. It is men's fear of themselves vis-a-vis a belief system, vis-a-vis a tradition that imposes on them a certain set of relationships with between men and women. I think that's the problem here. If the relationships are designed according to domination, then you're gonna have a hard time finding a balance in these relations. However, the idea of like who is going to weigh heavier or who is going to be like winning the war, sexual and otherwise, is the problem between the sexes mostly, and it is also represented in literature. Many works we still read as like innocent novels, but often they have like messages embedded in them. Let's, for instance, remember some of Shakespearean plays. Why does Ophelia have to die? Why does Ophelia have to die? Why does she have to commit suicide? Ophelia is caught in between the rhetoric of the father and Hamlet. So she listens to the father because the tradition says so. And then Hamlet doesn't like this because she's, according to Hamlet, sharing the secrets between them with the father, and the father uses those things against him and her. So in the end, he's going to like advise her to go to a nunnery. And interestingly, in the language all the time, nunnery is a whorehouse. It is a whorehouse. So go to a nunnery means go to a whorehouse. So you're a prostitute. You are a prostitute. That's what he says. And what makes her a prostitute is not anything sexual here. It is because she listens to her father, and of course she's gonna have to sort of experience death, like buried. When you're coming to the age of the novel, the romance is a totally different entity. So we cannot develop it like further because of time limitations. But when the novel in England emerges, I mean, how does that begin? There is a certain shift here. The woman, the figure of the woman as demon sort of begins to change. The woman is not necessarily that demonic entity that you see in the biblical tradition. So the novel, in a sense, secularizes the roles of the sexes. What I mean is, like talking about like Pamela by Richardson. You have the figure of this like innocent looking, naive girl writing back and forth to her parents about her boss, and Mr. B constantly tries to seduce her. And interestingly, she resists all those temptations. So Mr. B now becomes a demonic figure. He is the one, as man, unlike the tradition, okay, who tries to seduce the woman. But the woman, Pamela, is going to resist and will come out of this as a victorious figure. But then again, interestingly, be part of this guy's, Mr. B's world, marrying her in the end because the guy is rich. The guy is rich, and now she agrees to have to sleep with him on the condition that the two are married, and then they are supposed to marry. So the interesting combination is about like marriage and sleeping together. In several other novels of the 19th century, we see also a shift between the role of the woman as a seductor or seductress and man here. Like in Jane Austen novels, you see these like themes kind of alternating the marriage, love, separation, all that stuff. Or in a novel like Jane Eyre, you have the figure of Jane, who is supposed to marry a guy who is now an old, almost decrepit in age, but then again, she has this love, and of course that love has to be crowned with marriage, So 19th century literature is kind of replete with those figures, but then again, you know, though the demon, the role of the demon has changed, the seductress has changed, or seduction, perpetrator of seduction has changed, the suffering connected with women does not seem to be changing. Like in the case of Madame Bovary, for instance, what happens to the woman, you know, and why does it happen that way? Why does it happen to be that way? I mean, she marries this doctor, Monsieur Bovary, with high expectations, but then again, she does not find what she's looking for. And then some guys start a seduction process. This is what I mean by the changing of the seduction, source of seduction here. And again, in another work, in the American 19th century tradition, Awakening, you have the figure of this unhappy woman, but you know, women have to be happy at all costs. It is like in this 20th century drama piece, like even if you're unhappy, you keep repeating yourself that happy days, happy days, happy days, happy days, even if you're buried in this like mud or trouble of like emotional outburst up to your throat, you have to keep repeating yourself that you are happy, you're happy, you're happy, you're happy. So the existential dramatist plays around with the status of women as such the play. So we can talk about also Tess of the D'Urbervilles. You know, Tess is seduced by, again, a rich guy whom she thinks they are historically related, like family-wise related. And that also shows the direction of change in terms of seduction. And of course, she loves another guy, but then again, she has been adulterated by this guy representing the rising petit bourgeois, and sort of be dominated by him until the end of the novel, where she now gets together, gets reunited with her lover who's back from Brazil, and then she can go ahead and kill the guy, and of course she's taken away for execution later on as the novel unfolds towards the denouement. So you're talking about certain elements that change in the 19th century because the demon function of women kind of is transposed. There is a lot of reasons why, but probably we don't have time for discussion. In modern cinema, however, you see the same like classical theme developed, explored, reworked again, like in what's that woman? Fatal Attraction. I don't know whether you guys are familiar with that. You know how a woman sort of has a casual relations with a married man, and then she keeps haunting the couple afterwards because she wants to take revenge on the woman married to the guy, thus kind of doubling up the pleasure, like beating another woman linked up to this guy, and also like replacing the woman along the way as she hopes to do. So let me stop here and get the questions or comments, if you will. Sometimes it may be too boring to listen, and also the survey of literature may also be a boring thing. Like when you focus individually on these works, it is quite pleasurable, but then again, you know, a tabular work may not be always interesting. Yes. Any comments? My fellow students, my fellow colleagues, any questions, contributions?
I think you know, you've put in so much that it's difficult to pinpoint one element and so on. Things have changed in time, absolutely changed in time, and the image of female characters have changed in time, absolutely. I don't know if I perfectly agree with some of the images you gave, because there are some motives or topics that are present, but those same topics are present in many male writers as well. So I wouldn't just generalize. As a matter of fact, that is why some of the women writers of the 18th and 19th century preferred to use pen names, so that they were not seen only as women writers speaking of the same things. In, I don't know other literatures, but in British and American literature, we have great writers in the 19th century, great female women writers in the 19th century, who tackle all these problems and go beyond them. You quoted Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre is not, starts out being poor and so on, but at the end, maybe the students don't know, but at the end, she is the rich woman. She is rich and she decides to get married, okay? Reader, I married him are the last words of the book. So I would, you know, if we want to generalize, we can say that we have certain topics, love, betrayal, and so forth in all of 19th century literature. But if we want to go and check the single narratives, we can see that many of the women writers, Charlotte Bronte, let's go to George Eliot, or to the fin de siècle writers that many of the people here do not know because they are not part of the tradition. I'm speaking to the students, because the histories of literature always go and write the same things and perpetrate the same images and ideas. There are a lot of alternative histories of literature now. Let's say not even alternative, that is up to date, in which so you chose Pamela. I remember when I studied Pamela, but when I studied Pamela in my university years, I did not study Evelina. Evelina is the counterpart, if you want, the woman counterpart of books such as Pamela. So it depends on traditions and canons.
Yeah.
If we reread the canon, we will find that we can see and view different perspectives. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you.
We have a question from the YouTube classroom. There is Professor DeAndre is, reporting the questions from students. Just a minute.
Okay, Metin, sorry, because it's through the chat, so you have to translate to
It's
you,
okay.
and then you can answer, like, free. Okay, so the question is, when you were talking about Amleto, and in Amleto they use the word fishmonger, talking about pamphlet. The question is, if you think that there is a relationship between the word given to pamphlet and the suicide of Ophelia.
Hamlet uses a covert language at times. It is a language that we as readers understand if we are acquainted with the, then present status of the English language. So when he talks to Polonius, refers to Polonius, sir, yes, sir, I know you. Aren't you the fishmonger? Aren't you the fishmonger? Yes. He says that you're pandering your daughter to political ends because he's using poor Ophelia to promote himself. Yes, I agree. I agree. The same applies to the nunnery thing, actually.
Yeah. This was the second question. Also, the nunnery thing is the second question on the web chat. So.
Yeah. Probably it is kind of an ironical adaptation of the nunnery tradition. Boccaccio deals with those issues a lot in his Decameron.
Yeah, Metin as well. No?
Yeah, and Boccaccio has read a lot of these romances actually that came out of the southern Spanish tradition. The French tradition again of the 13th centuries, 12th, 13th centuries. Chaucer again goes along those lines. The images that he uses are yes, contrary to the tradition, and he is cynical of the tradition at the same time. Yeah. I don't know whether I have answered the question or I'm.
Yeah, I think so actually, because they gave me like thumbs up, so I think that it was right.
Okay.
New way to communicate. Now I got this one. Okay, so you answered the question. Okay, I don't know if we have some more question on the Zoom. Let me double check the chat again. No. Okay, so I think that you satisfied all the question, I think. Okay. So I let you go for lunch, Metin, and see you in the afternoon at 3.
Sì, quindi we want to thank you very much for your panoramic view of the question, and we'll meet again at 3 o'clock today.
Yeah, we meet again at 3 o'clock.
Yes, I apologize for this digression. Probably the topic was too broad, so I had to kind of skid over
obviously.
things, and just, yeah, as you put it rightly, like the panoramic vision was what I intended.
Sure.
So that like we could build up on
Sure.
those later on, maybe. All right.
Okay.
See you later.
Okay. Bon appetit.
Bon
Okay, thank you,
appetit.
Magnic. How do you say in
Enjoy,
Turkish?
enjoy your meal.
You need to learn. to teach me
No,
something in Turkish as well.
before we leave, I wanted to say that we not only have a scholar here, but a poet on the one hand that I knew, okay,
Trying to be,
but
yeah.
on the other hand, he is also a composer and singer. So, so he sent me two videos today, and I enjoyed them very much. So
Okay.
I hope that in the afternoon, when it's all over at the end, the scholar can be left behind, and Federico, you can put on the YouTube video, okay?
Okay, it's fine. Okay.
Va bene, te lo mando.
I will use as a farewell. I mean to say goodbye to everyone. Okay, that's going to be
Yes,
the
okay,
conclusion of today.
te lo mando dopo, va bene? Grazie.
Thumbs up for you as well. Okay.
Grazie.
See you later.
Arrivederci.
Ciao.
Thank you. Take care.
Ragazzi, ci riaggiorniamo allora alle 15, sempre sull'aula di Zoom e per chi è in presenza è in presenza. See you later.
See you. Take care.
Hello.
Buon pomeriggio.
Buon pomeriggio.
Pomeriggio.
Sorry, how do you say it in Turkish?
Günaydın. Günaydın.
Trident. Okay, I learned some. Okay. Listen,
Yes.
I'm sorry, but I'll have to leave the lesson because I had a prior engagement. I told them that I couldn't cancel it. I booked a friend's conference 6 months ago, so I can't change it. But I have been present, and it's been a pleasure to hear you, and we'll keep in touch and see if we can finally meet in the future in di persona. Okay. Did you have a virtual tour of Benevento?
Yes.
I mean, it's not the same thing, I assure you, but
I'll do the real thing, hopefully. Yes.
yeah. Well,
I must do it. Yeah.
I mean, this year has been what it is, and we all believe in the importance of international exchanges, and that's what COVID has limited in such a way that nobody has moved. I mean, I'm a globetrotter myself, and I mean, that's why I put up a map. I used to have pictures here. And then during COVID, at the very beginning, I bought myself a map so that I can travel, you know.
Yeah, mentally, huh? Okay.
At least, you know, you do what you can. You do what you can.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's been a pleasure. Hope to see you at the conference, and we'll keep in touch. And if you want to send me an abstract, but anyway, we will write to each other. So
okay, certainly. The pleasure is mine. The pleasure is mine. Thank you very much, and good luck with your work with the conference. Thank you very much for everything you have done.
I mean, you have been, as I've already said, you have been very generous to do it anyway. You could have said, no, I'm not coming, I'm not doing anything, you know that. So we are grateful. we are grateful that notwithstanding what happened, now you know that in Italy you need a passport valid 3 months. I mean,
Yeah,
but what you say is experience should teach us something.
that's right. Now I'm gonna renew it. Like each time I do it, like it goes for 5 years.
No, but I mean, we Italians know that even if we don't say it in words, but we know that we can't move without a valid passport, even if we're leaving just for a few days. So
Yeah.
it makes no sense. It makes no sense. I asked an expert in the field, saying what happened to you. And they said that if you had a carta d'identità, an identity card, they could have let you pass.
Yeah.
With an identity card. You didn't think about it.
No.
I did go to the roots of the problem. He said if you had an identity card which did not expire, you could have passed. So please take both of them. No, I'm telling you, I'm telling you because when I travel in Europe, I always have both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
you didn't know that. You didn't know that. So now you do.
So we learn every day. So that's how
absolutely.
Yeah.
If we didn't learn every day, it would be boring.
Yes, certainly.
I mean,
maybe that's part of why we suffer on earth, knowledge.
Yes, sure. I mean, what sense would it make? At a certain point, one would say, stop, don't do anything anymore.
Yeah.
A good way of forgetting, by the way.
Yes.
Anyway.
So, how do we do now? Like, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna be done or like?
No, I'm waiting for Fulvia to say.
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Okay, hello. So here's your host. I'm sorry, mi dispiace Fulvia, ma ho un impegno, sono stata presente tutte le...
Yeah, I heard. Don't worry.
So,
I'm not sure if we're supposed to wait for Federico De Andres, or should we?
Oh no, we can wait. We should wait for him.
Okay, great.
We should wait for him.
In the meantime, I would just like to join my colleagues in welcoming you, even virtually. I very much look forward to this lesson of yours today, which will be on distance learning and distance teaching.
Actually, that topic was suggested by you, not necessarily an agenda I would put forward. I can say limited things about that, and also, are we gonna forget about this playing the instrument? Maybe we forget about it. Oriana, you requested I do the playing or what?
No, we said I said Federico suggested that we do the playing at the end of the last lesson.
Okay. So we are going to be talking about distance learning right now. Not a very interesting topic, but okay. Let me do what I can.
Yes, let's wait that Federico comes.
Okay.
Here he is.
Federico.
Ciao, Federico.
Mia just...
Senti, Federico dice che non gli interessa molto il topic distance learning. So maybe we can reshape it slightly and see what che dici, Fulvia?
Yeah, I think that from what I understand from the program, you were going to talk about also your personal experience with distance learning and distance teaching, which I think that it's something that we can all relate to, because this year we have all learned so much in terms of what it means to teach online, although as professors in a partly online university, we already have some experience on that, but this year we really had the opportunity to reflect on what works, what doesn't work, and how to engage students, and especially how all this plays out in the context of international studies. So maybe just discussing our respective
What-
experiences
yes.
would be interesting.
Yes, what you did this year and what your university did and how you coped with the
Okay,
problem of,
okay.
internet not working and students
yes.
not being able to get in touch online, and then
That's right.
changing methodology in teaching because you can't teach in the same way. You're not present. And the especially the relationship with the students changes because if you don't have a program, a software that makes it simple to dialogue with the students, it's just a conference. So just your own experience, maybe.
Okay. Then let me begin with the
like
platonic understanding of the types of existence. Just a second.
Vi saluta.
Like talking about this like virtual being and the so-called real being. So I connected that with the Platonic notion of presence. According to Plato, there is two kinds of. I'm sorry, Frederick, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was telling you, as Professor Sestayano was telling to you, just to give like to our students a different point of view. So this situation like this, actually situation is changing something also in the way how we can relate it with our students actually, especially it depends because for me it's quite easy because I'm teaching economics. So it's like, something that you can, do by day, but especially for you, how you can communicate to our students in this kind of situation. So that's the idea of our intervention, just to have another point of view, okay, an international point of view.
Yeah. So the COVIDification of the universe has been quite an experience for everyone, as we have all experienced. Of course, like amidst the number of deaths, like cases explained on a daily basis, and also how you can sort of survive throughout the process has been demolishing some of the learned experience and also the relationships, international and otherwise. When the COVID pandemic has started, some countries have even seized, like pirates of the old times, certain planes carrying masks and everything. So this has probably told us something, like whether our civilized being is valid only when there is civilized circumstances, or can we really revert back to times to the savage self that we have probably when the environment changes. So how different senses of the self sort of manifest themselves during times of emergency and trouble, let me put it that way. So for quite a while actually the distance education has been connected with the idea of what we call internet, that is linked, being linked remotely. So how real that is, and how actually real are we in the so-called real life? Are we using substitutes, the so-called requirements of our role models, but keeping up the physical appearance? But then again, as the Netflix series sometimes put forward in a blunt sense of the word, whether we express different parts of ourselves, or in this novel, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, whether we are the self that we are, or the self that we want to present. So I look at the distance learning as an extension of that psychology, and also that sense of presence I was trying to refer to earlier when the lecture sort of started. According to Plato, there's two kinds of universe, right? So one is a realm that is not tangible, that is beyond ourselves, and the realm that we experience through our senses. So we have this internet thing for like 50, 60 years now, but the discussions of what is real and what affects us like more, the so-called real or the sense of presence, was discussed by Plato in several dialogues actually. So over the years, we have also seen the contributions of different philosophies or sometimes religious faiths even, like what is real to us? Like the way we are now, is it the real thing? Or like Jesus would put it, the real thing is actually in the aftermath of what we call life. So the beginning and ending, whether like one marks out or triggers of another, or actually we experience the two things, there's the real and the virtual, like at once, like at the same time. Coming back to how this applies to the present circumstances. When this came up in Turkey, like in the world, the university has taken precautions to secure some software right away in order to sort of make sure that like we can have our education online. So this I was not totally kind of new to the experience. I did that partially in the U.S. when I was teaching there in St. Louis. But then again, after like 11 years, and that was just one class I was teaching. After 11 years, and through like this new media, I first sat back and thought about like, what are we gonna do? Because there is not gonna be connection, and education is about, remember, like the power of education is how you touch, or to what degree you touch the lives of people. Whereas, like you cannot touch the people. That is, you cannot move through the rows, tiers of seats. And I particularly, even when I was in the U.S., the Americans love to keep each other at bay. So distance, distance. And I was sort of trying in somehow weird way, to some of the students, but already given them a warning that I may sometimes pat them on the shoulder. This doesn't mean that I am some like sexually pervert person. It is because human beings have lost this sense of touch, like closeness, proximity, that sense of proximity, and they have built up walls around themselves, and they cannot cross them, and then they complain about being walled up in their own worlds. So I warned them about this first, and also I played some tricks in some of the classes. Like one of my students had his cock on the desk, and I said, "Thank you very much. I know you got this for me." And the guy goes like that, "Are you crazy?" He's giving me this "Are you crazy?" look. But then again, they understand the gist of the story. So that was the experience. And we, like the Italians, most probably like to be like within close proximity. Like we don't hide away from the people. We don't like to keep them at a distance. Now we are supposed to be remote, not only like in short distances, but totally distance from the environment that we and we have a very beautiful campus, by the way, and we had to be totally isolated. So the educational process started. In some classes, I am teaching 2 PhD courses and 2 MA courses, and 1 undergraduate course. Or with the adults, you can handle things better, but with the undergraduate kids, of course, things turned out to be a bit different. So they want to hide. I mean, these guys who love to show off everything, like the food they eat, the places they visit, the new thing that they have recently purchased. I mean, all those things they want to kind of show off through Instagram and other social media. They sort of hide behind the screen, and then like everything shut down. I go like, hey, I mean, I'm talking to the wall or some black screen. I mean, why are you doing? I mean, why do you need to do that? Somehow, they feel that it is better this time because somehow this world that we live on a daily basis and the world that we present to others through social media have sort of canonized certain things. And some of the students, some of the groups, the undergraduate groups actually, never met each other even. Like, it is not like, you know each other from the very beginning, but somehow you get isolated during this period. They've never seen each other. We have never met them. So out of the blue, you have like 30, sometimes 60 students. And then you have to find a mediocrity, like a medium by which you can communicate, you can relate to each other, and then somehow reflect certain things to them, and they would sort of respond to it in their own way. And also you're supposed to give them an exam. Whereas education, yes, this is like temporarily speaking, this is a good way of survival as well as continuing education. But I mean, without like having seen each other, distance education would be not a very recommendable idea. I personally thought. Each professor has his own methods, her own methods, and sometimes you want to get to know the students, and like at the exams especially, you need to kind of know the person at least to some extent. Somehow you ask the questions, and they have the internet and everything, and you don't know how far they can, copy things from the internet. You give them a warning, but somehow, it doesn't seem to be working. Still, this is not an academic paper after all, as they're supposed to be writing. So you go through a lot of papers with high level of English, and you don't know whether this student has really mastered the language and that area of scholarship, or somehow everything you see there is copied down. So that's part of the problem I experienced. But with a degree of maturity, students and the professors have sort of taken to teaching through Teams. We use Teams network here, which is very much like Zoom. So when it comes to like asking questions, sometimes the students pretend to be up here, but then again, in order to test whether they're there really, you ask them questions, but then again, you don't get any answers. Probably the guy is up there playing with the PlayStation, or maybe watching something. After all, the professor is talking, and everything is recorded. Everything is recorded. So they can do whatever they want, it seems. There's some moments at times that I felt initially, this is kind of relegating you to a very small being. I mean, you talk, but without the response. I mean, without the students, we don't mean anything. I mean, that we know certain things, okay, but without like relaying it to the students and getting it sort of mirrored, you feel not very good. Like it turns into an existential problem, like a Sartrean problem, probably no exit. But then again, trying harder, and feeling at times that you are not wasting time in the traffic, whereas you use that time by communicating with the students. Like they have my cell phone number, and sometimes they are not very considerate, writing back and forth to you, either through the Zooms or through the software we use on the phones. In order to ease up the process, everyone has that, and then ask questions, and sometimes this happens like somewhere midnight. And they know that I am gonna be up until 4 o'clock in the morning. But I said, use this with precaution, and in emergency cases, when you wanna use some cuss words at someone you cannot find, just that is the time you can call me. And I am serious. I've been doing this for decades. But then again, when it comes to asking about what kind of questions I'm gonna be asking, when what is this point that you explained, but she didn't understand, then it sometimes gets boring, or you think this is not why you got my cell phone number for. So we had that kind of experience, but for at least a year now, we have probably wriggled out of this problem. The students seem to have got used to the process. Probably some of them want to even continue with distance education, because some of them are shy to talk. So when they kind of veil behind the blank or black screen, they feel it easier to ask questions. So there is different psychologies involved in the process, I believe. So we got used to the process when they don't show up like in person, and you just talk to the screen. But if you students sort of carry on the show, so those are some of the points that I thought about. And also the process has also kind of led me to ask questions about how real are you in real life, actually? How real are you? Is it your voice that makes you real? Is it your movements, like the picture's appearance? Or is it the way the students understand you, or like make something out of you? Which one is kind of more real? And like since you're not formally dressed when teaching distance, that's probably another thing. Right now, like, I mean, you can put on sports clothing, and then you don't need to be that very careful. So the students probably feel that way. So it is making education in some way more informal, and it gives more comfort to some of the students at least. So those are the things that I might share with you guys. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Okay, I have two questions for you actually.
Yeah.
One is like quite I mean, in my opinion, because we are like, an expert as well of cinematography, so also like, how it's possible to use imaging to communicate something. Okay, I'm talking about my personal experience. I mean, in this period has been quite difficult, to keep someone connected for several hours, So
Yes.
in my courses, I use several times images or movies or videos also, from the web, in order to keep, the attention more high actually, because it was quite complicated for me, maybe teaching on this huge screen, many students connected for maybe 2 hours. So
how do you think that we can use imaging to communicate something, especially during this time? I mean, when online it's easier to communicate instead of, using our tools, like our normal tools, using something different, how is possible, to use videos or imaging? That's the first question. And the second question, what do you think about formality? I think that sometimes the informality could be a good option. And I think that online we use this informality to communicate something. Sometimes maybe people feel less shy to intervene in a web lesson instead of to intervene like in a public one. So sometimes this informality could be like, a really good option that we never used before actually, because I never connected from my home actually. No, I never connected like, 8 in the morning, like in my sitting room. Normally I go to the university. So I was more informal actually, me.
Yeah.
So my students, they were more informal. So after the first, issues at the very beginning, when we start to get used with this informality online, they start to, intervene, to participate more, because it was like more, I don't know, it's possible to define, but it was like, a more comfort zone actually, instead of stay at the university. So I really would like to know your opinion about it. If you can use imaging and video as well. And also the second question is, what do you think about this informality of the teaching, that we start to have now?
Yeah. I think that has kind of torn down the barriers. However nice you are, however nicely you treat the students, still you're a figure of authority in their eyes. When you're not teaching face to face or in person, somehow that formal barrier, it is torn down, and some of the students feel that it is easier for them, and actually they did express this to me. They feel it easier to ask questions. There is no problem of potential intimidation. After all, no one sees each other at times. You just hear the voice. Being informal is a better way of comforting the students and paving the way for education. At times, this may cause moments of negligence, but I think it is always worth to give them this comfort through informality and the understanding that we are there for them, and actually we are part of their infotainment environment now through this distant learning education process. We are part of their infotainment. So like YouTubers,
because sometimes I felt like an entertainment, person instead of a professor, because sometimes
yeah.
I could create a different environment, to teach a little bit better. So sometimes I had the same feeling that we were more entertainers than professors sometimes.
Yes.
That's a really good point, I think.
Exactly. And I do use movies, yes, and sometimes especially in the first weeks of this pandemic, all the institutions started using the internet for education, and that meant we had internet connection problems. Sometimes, you're talking, and then somehow the guys say we cannot hear you well, whereas you have concentrated on the chain of ideas, and you start all over. I don't know, those kind of distracted me at times, and probably that was the worst thing, since you cannot keep track of everything you say. Each time you come up with new words, expressions, or phrases, and all that stuff. And since the first part is already lost, you want to go and explore the same phase to move up to the present state. So those were sort of problematic. and to make it like more like palatable for them, you know, I did focus on certain aspects of a movie as part of the course, and some of the readings actually I substituted for movies. So the readings, instead of like a novel, I prefer to use the novel adaptation or cinema adaptation of the novel in order to make the learning more sort of visual. And though yes, you're not like legally liable for their conditions. After all, these are human beings, and sometimes you have to take care of those potential problems even more than the parents do, because you're in the job. So you can say, okay, I mean, to hell with whoever understands and whoever does not. But you know, it would like relegate us to nothingness, whereas we are for the students, and without the students, we wouldn't mean anything. So those things were part of my consideration, and hopefully we are like pulling out. We are pulling out. Yes.
Okay, no, yeah, I mean, I was like quite interested in your point of view, you know, because for us it's been, you know, quite, you know, strange actually, because I mean, like, you know, to deal in a different way, but has been something that's been compulsory, you know, because we need to go ahead actually. That was the real issues. So,
Yeah.
so I could tell you that, I mean, the use of imaging, as I was telling you before, has been quite positive actually, because it was like, you know, quite good to commit also for you, no? Because sometimes it's not so easy to talk like for a couple of hours without any interaction. So the idea to use it was like, you know, helping you, aiding you was quite, you know, innovative.
Yeah.
Actually. And in the meantime, yeah. No,
And
no.
I was reminded, I'm sorry for the interruption. I thought you were done. I use this method that Coleridge is proposing, the willing suspension of disbelief. I mean, you have to be in this world. If you keep it, if you feel that like you're here and you're talking to some like unreal situation, then you are distracted. That's how I felt. But like when I let myself go in, like lose my real self, whatever it is, and
Yeah.
to become part of the virtual, then I feel better that way.
Yeah, especially
Yeah.
now it was something that was completely different. So I think that we have to deal with this situation, you know, because I never thought to have like, you know, some entertainment attitudes that I found out like in this period. Never thought before to have this ability to share like, you know, a TV screen actually like Skype
Yes.
for
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
I was not supposed to do it. Now I found out that I was able to do something else that was different, you know. So that has been really challenging, but also really amazing because we find it out a totally new point of view to teach, and
Yeah.
maybe something I'm going to keep for my future as well. Okay, so just the thing that I want to tell to you, Metin, that maybe I will use my videos, my imaging also during my presential courses.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I found a new way to communicate. There's something that you know, because I mean, you studied cinematography. So it's something that you really know how you can communicate with images and videos and movies. No, there's something that I never use. I'm teaching economics. So, I mean, I don't have any movies about the study of economics as well, no? It's something that you can get. But it's something that I can use, no? So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
so it was quite interesting for me to understand your point of view, no? Because I think that now we can teach everything with videos as well, or with imaging as well. It just
Yeah.
to change.
Another thing is at times like, yeah, I have the whole system in my office at the university as well, like coffee machine and all that stuff and all that stuff. However, you know, you cannot smoke while you're teaching, of course. So I have this bad habit of smoking. I'm about to stop, So at times I would close my camera and enjoy my cigarette too. So that made my job partially, especially if you're talking about a 3-hour class. So I would just light up the cigarette and at the same time, you know, talk about this and that.
Yeah.
And I warned the students. I mean, I'm closing the camera because I have some bad habits, so I don't want you to see that.
No,
And then like put it back up.
I think that's quite cool. And then I'm going to give you the floor to Massimiliano Carioni and my colleagues. But that's what's quite good because sometimes, I mean, when I was interacting during my presential courses, sometimes you do something that is a little bit bizarre in order, you know, to change the formality of the classroom. So I had to pretend now during my courses to do something of bizarre also when I was online. So sometimes I was pretending to lose connection, or sometimes I was pretending that the microphone was not working, just in order, you know, to pretend to have the same, you know, informal situation when I was having my student as well online. You know? So that was the things that before that sometimes it was like quite difficult this situation that we start to use in order to create a new environment as well. So that was quite very good. So thank you. I mean, for us, for me, for Fulvio was quite important also to see another point of view about this pandemic situation. Now,
thank you.
For everyone. So and now that we are starting again to have a relationship with foreign professor, our idea is just to, you know, to learn something, to learn. So like the question is, how did you survive? No, I mean, so the question is, to share something that was quite good. Oh no, what do you think?
What was the question to me or?
No.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure whether you were.
No, I was not sure that.
To me.
Okay,
No, I was listening the whole time, and I think that really the main thing that we can take away from all of this very difficult experience that we all collectively had as professors, as teachers, was also what can we. It was a step out of a comfort zone for us too, not just for students, but for educators and teachers at all levels. I got confirmation from your discussions that really the main thing that we can take away is concerns what strategies can we deploy to increase the engagement of students. And this is something that we can also deploy outside of these emergency situation that has affected us this year, because I think that as professors and as teachers, we need to keep thinking about student engagement, especially because generations will continue to change before us, and so and they have, you know, different ways of communicating, different ways to engage in professional environments, in university environments. So I think that it's important to really reflect whether what we are used to, what our generation is used to, is still valid for that generation, or we need to change our communication strategies in order to engage students. And I think that this is maybe one of the silver linings that we can find in this situation, because it has taught us to question ourselves to a certain point, and also to really think about how to engage students as effectively as possible.
That's right. Yep.
So I would just like to really leave the floor now to any eventual questions or interventions that other colleagues or.
Thank you. I just want to say another thing to both of us, because Professor Stagliano, she's responsible for international relations at the university. That has been, I think, a quite good opportunity, because even if we didn't move, actually, because we were locked in the home, actually, we had so many occasions for our students to have, like you, someone that was able to sharing their experience with us. No, that's something that now online is something that's normal. So I'm sure that maybe in the next year, maybe I can participate something like a conference or a meeting with the students. Also, it's something that would really change our attitude, you know, because maybe 2 years ago, if you were telling to me, I'm coming to have courses online, I was sure that I was telling you, no, it's not possible, no? But now it's something that's completely different for us as well. It's something that now is normal, no, it's a new normality.
You just go for it, yes.
Yeah.
We got used to it, yeah.
For the international student, something that's like fantastic, you know, because I mean, you can enjoy from your home something that's new,
Yes,
completely new.
exactly, exactly. I have, for instance, students in the PhD program, like from India, Pakistan, Syria, Tunisia. I mean, somebody from Germany. So this is kind of, yeah, universalizing that experience, and they're like spending less for their education. So that's quite an opportunity in that sense. There is like things that you seem to be missing at times, but like once you find or establish that rapport between the students, I think that's the most important thing. Sometimes, even if like you're in the physical environment of learning, you may not catch it. But once you have that, it works. I think that's the most important thing, like virtual and like physical. Temporal spatial rapport is the most important thing.
Okay, Metin, now I'm gonna give you to the Lions actually, because we have Professor Fulvia Stagliano, she's Professor of International Law, and then we
Okay.
have Professor Massimiliano Carioli, that is Professor of Theory of International Relations. So that's the reason why I'm gonna give you to the Lions actually, because both of them, they are two subject experts of something that I read about you because you wrote several papers and research about the role of the women and the democracy. That's something that's been really interesting for you. So when I was telling about you to Massimiliano and to Fulvia, they were quite happy actually, because it's something that's related, really related with the international world, with international relations. So that's the why I'm gonna give you to the Lion, because now I want to know your point of view about these women, the role of the women in the democracy. Because I read something about you. Your point of view is quite, innovative, I think. So, this role of the women in the democracy is something that really, create curiosity in myself. So I want to give now the floor to Massimiliano and to Fulvia, because that's their field. So I'm gonna, shut up my mouth and give them the floor.
Okay. Thank you. I hope I can say something meaningful. This is like a conversation between and among scholars. So I'll do my best to give like satisfactory answers to the questions. Or actually, this is just a sharing of ideas.
Yeah,
Exchange of ideas.
when I said science, I'm just joking,
yes.
just because they are really expert about it, So
Okay.
it's like a lecturer point of view. So it's something that's going to be quite interesting, I think, because
Okay.
they really did something,
Oh yeah. Shall I wait for Massimiliano to?
They can say hello to you, Massimiliano, as well, because he just joined now, and then I give you the floor, and then we leave the time for the question at the end, because I have the students connecting on YouTube.
Okay.
So I need just to give that the time. Massimiliano, it's up to you. Food is up to you. I'm gonna shut up my mouth.
No, you don't have to shut up. Okay, thank you, and hello to everybody.
Hi there.
Okay,
Nice meeting you.
nice to meet you.
And yes, please.
Please.
I am personally skeptical of democracy in general. I am probably moving along the Platonic lines. Plato is against democracy. I am not, but I'm kind of interested in, or like trying to explore whether democracy is like or can be democratized, because with all these media instruments and with capital moving into politics and people becoming, yes, on the one hand, individualistic, or like they're given the impression that they are individuals, but they are becoming part of a larger mass.
Okay.
Larger mass through not only the media, but also the social media. Capitalism teaches you that you're an individual. Gentlemen, ladies, you're individuals. But this is what we have for you. So you as an individual, and you're a demigod, you can choose whatever you want to buy, but everything is kind of controlled. So I feel at times very much like Truman Show in our daily lives. Like talking about the Trump experience. Yes, we'll talk about women, but like let's handle this problem of the demos first. I mean, the Kratos is everywhere. In all the regimes, you have the Kratos. We know that. When you say the demos, yes, you know, in Saddam's regime there was democracy too, but again, what is the number of the people, the demos, involved in the government itself? And talking about the American democracy, for instance, one of the American presidents say, American democracy is at best a well-organized oligarchy. So those are like serious expressions, and these guys, at least several American presidents, have talked about that. And democracy has, however, been like one of the shall we say, playgrounds where like global hegemony operates to delude us into thinking that we are individuals, we can make our choices, and then we can, you know, decide on certain things, but everything is a given to us, not something that we actually make most of the time, but we are there to choose from amongst the options that are available to us through capitalism and other means. And another problem with democracy in general is, you know, American politics has been using democracy to democratize the world, which means to like exercise hegemony on global politics. So whenever American politics decides that you're a democratic country, you're democratic, which means American hegemony is there. So Germany is democratic because you know America is fully there, and Germans are trying to get rid of that hegemonic presence, but they seem to be unable to do so. So, like when you again talk about South African democracy, I mean, you come to a point, it is democracy up to a point, but then again, when you decide things are going wrong on the part of American politics, it is no longer democracy. So, you know, there is even a song like don't make America angry, or else it is going to bring democracy to you. So democracy comes in different shapes and forms. We know that. Democracy in Vietnam, democracy in Israel today. I mean, Palestinians are being destroyed by forces beyond any control. I mean, you have all these institutions constituted or set up after the Second World War, the whole order. I mean, you know these like better than I do. But then again, nothing seems to be working. United Nations Security Council again, like five countries have been kind of designed to speak like for and against certain resolutions, but then not necessarily, you know, being democratic in the sense that, you know, the decisions taken there are representative of at least majority of the countries involved. So, like when I think about all those things, I mean, I really am very skeptical of democracy. I go along the lines of meritocracy, and even the perfect democracy, whatever it is, might falter in terms of meritocracy. In the case of Trump, for instance, I mean, you're talking about the majority of the people electing President Trump to be president, and this guy would have won presidency in the last election as well if it weren't like for some COVID related problems. And interestingly, he has not like harvested some of the practices he was implementing before the presidential elections. I mean, the unemployment rate and all that stuff. But then again, the whole media, I mean, YouTube, Twitter, all these like social media instruments were blocked down. I mean, this guy was shut out of all these instruments. And this is supposed to be democracy. And then whatever media, the so-called conventional media in the US, were like in favor of another guy, and we are not sure whether this guy is any better in terms of politics. I mean, but if the same thing happens in China, we call it because the Chinese government is communist, essentially. I'm kind of skeptical as well as like tired of this hypocritical attitude towards democracy. Democracy is actually like one of those balls in the juggler's hands. So it goes all the way around. I mean, it goes up and down and everything. And democracies, I believe, use women leaders better than males. And actually, if you want to do worse things and not hurt the people or not let the sleeping dogs wake up, you know, you work with women leaders most of the time. Just look at Margaret Thatcher. I mean, she was a woman, yes, as far as we know. But then again, she was more patriarchal in her politics, international politics, than any other, as patriarchal or even more patriarchal than, say, the president, than the present prime minister of the country. Let's, for instance, talk about, you know, other women presidents. Turkey had one prime minister. She was more hawkish when she was in power than many male prime ministers and presidents. So I believe the global politics somehow, or internal politics, or deep states, functioning in countries, sometimes the Gladio operations, somehow like work things out to you know, pursue politics through women, because after all, you know, having women in power, but, you know, giving them like iron gloves, iron gloves not visible, keep things, tensions kind of over. And I believe the Obama administration, though he was a male figure, of course, was kind of employed or deployed as such, like to suppress the rising, say, potential for riots and even rebellion among the Black and other minorities. So the guy, when he came to the fourth year of his first presidential period, I mean, he was already gone. He had to kind of pick up certain principles, like call for tea parties in order to run the government, because the budget was not enough. And, you know, according to the US Constitution, you know, the budget deficit cannot, you know, go beyond a certain level and all that stuff. So he was elected for a second time. But then again, that second time, he was like a senior student, having done most of the work in his studies, and thus enjoying his time. I mean, we have not seen a president. So the global politics is like turning into more like a game. It is losing its validity. Like traditional arguments, we might at least virtually believe, but I don't believe that democracy is really covering up, I'm sorry to use the expression, this bullshit that we experience globally. I mean, when you talk about even the COVID pandemic, for instance, I mean, we have seen how democracies fail to cope with that, if we are talking about real democracies. I stop here and then get your questions, if any, or if I am being ridiculous, just warn me, please.
Okay, yeah, I think so, especially because, I mean, you were talking about Margaret Thatcher. I think that was like one of the more controversial, person about, the public, I mean, the history of United Kingdom, because you never know if she has been really democratic or not, actually, no, because there's like exactly in the mid, no, because you cannot say that she was like, you know, democratic or not, actually, because she had so many different points of view. Massimiliano, what do you think? There's something that is really in your field, actually, today, yeah? No, you
No,
okay?
here I am. Sorry, it's very interesting. All of this. I'd like to know the point of view of our guest about, for example, not only the politics, but also the relationship between politics and, for example, cultural experience in the country. Not only the political system or the power or the system of power. Okay.
Yeah, cultural experience in which country, or like all countries, or Turkey, or?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. For example, in USA and Europe, and for example, Islamic countries.
Okay. The case with the U.S. Is like known to everyone, I believe. I think it is like Noam Chomsky talks about it a lot. He's been exploring all these things about American democracy. And probably I would agree with many of what he says about American democracy, as long as the people do not own, possess, have control of the media or communication vehicles. Any democracy is going to be decrepit. And democracy is going to be problematic, because you're getting viewpoints of like a few people, a few media organs, media outlets. And then you think you're deciding individually. This is what I call the Truman Show effect, actually. Okay, this is my idea. Some people say, and I laugh it off. Really, really? I mean, most often in the U.S., I mean, this Murdoch guy and like similar media outlets control everything. I mean, they have like shareholders, like companies also in Europe, let alone the like politically specific points of engagement in European countries. I'm talking about the Gladio, the U.S. Involvement in politics, and this is a fact. Not only in Italy, despite the clean hands operation and everything, I think it has taken a different shape. It is the same in Turkey. I mean, they sometimes criticize you for not being democratic, which I take to mean like we cannot exercise full influence on you. Whereas like people in Turkey are usually, like most of these people are very friendly towards each other, but somehow the visible invisible Gladio operations and coup d'etats backed by the US, not only in Turkey, but in a lot of countries. And you don't have any voices rising from Germany. But the last time I visited Germany, I saw how thrilled some German officials were, because some Americans were evacuating the country. And they believe that they are under some kind of like unnamed occupation, unnamed occupation. And talking about Islamic countries, you know, according to Islam, you're supposed to consult. The Prophet of Islam was supposed to consult with the people around him. So this kind of direct democracy. But what is manifested in the so-called Muslim countries is has nothing to do with democracy in the ideal sense, not in the American sense of the word, but in the very American sense, yes. Saudi Arabia is very democratic because the US exercises full hegemony. I mean, there is no Saudi government. Actually, there is only extension of American, you know, political outlets there, a political interest there. The same applies to United Arab Emirates. I mean, you don't need elections. I mean, what is elections for? Like about Egypt. I mean, the most recent example. I mean, there is a democratically elected government, and you talk about the Arab Spring. And the whole global media operate on that. Arab Spring, Arabs are becoming more democratic and all that stuff. And then the guys elect the President Rusi, and then you declare Hosni Mubarak as the dictator who has dropped the country of about $100 billion. And we don't know who has seized that money in American or European banks, by the way. And then Morsi is elected, democratically elected, okay. And then there comes another coup d'etat. And we know Mubarak was a dictator. He came to power through a coup d'etat. And the guy before Mubarak, Hosni Mubarak, was, again, there as a result of a coup d'etat. So you change things using the internal dynamics within a country, and then you call it a democratic. So Turkey is another case in point, for instance. Like we had a coup d'etat in 1980. So the military generals told people, I remember like dimly when they were talking on the TV, they did this because there was anarchy in the country. So in order to like keep the country from anarchy, they had this coup d'etat, and then you fill the prison houses with people because they're leftists and rightists and all that stuff, and somehow this whole way for anything the military can handle all these operations. So this is like after 3 years, they tell you to move on with democracy, but then again, that democracy is again a governable, achievable democracy. The economy has already been designed according to American interests, and then you operate along those lines. And when you get credits, you pay like more interest, so that makes you more democratic. You have to go to IMF. IMF makes you democratic if you pay off all the debts to IMF, and then you're supposed to be absolved. They say you're kind of getting out of control. Then you're becoming undemocratic or anti-democratic. So the democracy is all about you know, rhetoric most of the time, I believe. I mean, it is not just about elections. And when I was teaching in the US, there was also another case, and we were discussing certain things. I said, what do you mean by democracy, guys? I said, they go with capitalism. I mean, how can you really associate capitalism with democracy? This is one of the problems of our thinking, I believe. You know, if the capitalist foregrounds the rise in capital before everything else, that means you're talking about economic and political, following political domination along with it. And Gramsci talks about it like in profound detail. Then how are you gonna match up the power of a single person who has both capital and media outlets, like Berlusconi?
Metin, you freeze.
Okay.
No. You freeze for 1 sec, so I didn't get the last 2 words. So you said the democracy is, and then you freeze.
So Access Spring is a huge company with media outlets and like publishing practices, and it is linked up with with the Murdoch companies. We're about a global propaganda, and they are taken to be objective if you buy whatever they say. I am sort of skeptical of the media in general. But then again, if you ask me whether social media is more democratic because it is a freer world, I see no reason to believe that, because the essential governing role in the social media is provided again by the traditional conventional media, which has involvements in politics and economics of any country, actually. So how are we gonna really talk about democracy in those terms? Maybe a utopian sense of democracy, like utopian socialism, like utopian anything, maybe, or like we have in Turkey, utopian liberals. I mean, I attended their meetings. They see the liberalism as the best solution to anything. If you have a heart attack, then liberalism is going to be the remedy for that and all that stuff. But then again, like if you delve into the origins of problems, I think mostly capitalism and politics yoked together is causing most of these problems, because they're feeding info to our ears, to our eyes, even to our sensitivities. And then when those things like visual and otherwise kind of bombard you with images, with sounds and everything, of course, you tend to believe that. And we are old enough to remember the Gulf War. Remember the Gulf War in Iraq. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people were killed. But CNN was showing the picture or images of a bird sunk in oil with some tragic sounding music in the background. So we were supposed to care about the oil that the bird was kind of drained in, rather than tens of thousands of people killed through aerial bombing. So, however, I mean, that's the image, and the media, of course, gives you glimpses of things to cover up the reality. Essentially, that's what I believe.
Okay, thank you. I have a little question,
Sure.
I think. Do you think there is the right idea of democracy? There is the most balanced one, for example?
If this might be a utopian scheme, meritocracy, like if the right people are in right places and they have a real good and sound legal system that is going to operate, not change according to the person of in a powerful country, powerless country, and all that stuff. Okay, so this is not just within a country. And central banks being independent rather than becoming part of a centralized global hegemony, then only can you probably talk about a balanced democracy. And of course, like goodwill, like if you use like these mechanisms, including education, to condition people, to propagate people, then you can do it. And this is what's going on. I mean, even in very innocent looking movies, you have those like propaganda messages, and some other people use those like background images to reinforce their arguments about the influence or origins and influence of COVID pandemic. That's why some people protest that the vaccinations, they don't believe that there is actually any pandemic. This is all made up, engineered, and all that stuff. I don't know whether we can really return to an essential human. This may sound utopian. Like if we believe that human beings are valuable to each other, we mean something to each other, Actually, our happiness, even when we buy the best car, what's the best car in Italy? Like, well, what's the best Italian car?
It's naturally a Ferrari, for example.
Ferrari, okay. Even to show off your Ferrari, you need some people around. So you wouldn't enjoy driving that Ferrari, this beautiful car, on top of a mountain, or like Robinson Crusoe, give him a car. He wouldn't get that pleasure. So even at that level, very basic level, you need people
About that.
around. But like we are like enemies to each other, like we are like lupus to each other. I think liberalism has contributed to the process as well. Like if you have power and uncontrolled, unbridled power, some people are enjoying, and the others are just watching because they are afraid, because they are powerless, because they want to simply survive vis-a-vis the hovering influence of those instruments or guys. Then you're gonna have a well cosmeticized oligarchy which pretends to be democracy. I think fundamentals, but do we let other people love over themselves as well? I don't know whether we can maintain this, whether this would be linked up with some religious tradition or with some ethical standard, with some like legal background to what I'm talking about. But you know, democracy does not and should not mean just a majority, and that majority can be easily secured by forces outside the so-called common people. And before like you understand your power is already usurped against yourself. Let's remember here Henry David Thoreau. Henry David Thoreau talks about it in Civil Disobedience. Maybe we need more civil disobedient people to have a better democracy anywhere in the world. I don't know. I mean, there is a lot to say, but most of what we say seem to be futile because we are verging on utopian schemes.
Okay, thank you. It's a really
Sure.
interesting point of view. Really, I don't know if other people want to make some questions to the professor, please.
Okay, I got a question from the YouTube as well, as usual. That's the New Age communicate. So they're asking to me, I mean, to ask you here, what's your point of view about the situation of the moment? I mean, like if we still are in democracy, I mean, with all these, health issues and everything, the thing is, are we still in democracy, or we are talking about something that's, more important than democracy? That's the question. What do you think? I mean,
yeah, I think I understand the question. Governments love to have these scenes probably because in times of conflict, trouble, or pandemic, you stick to two essential things: either to God, because he is supposed to be omnipresent, thus you get help from him, right? even Robinson
he's
Crusoe.
got the answer, actually. That's the thing.
Yeah. Even Robinson Crusoe stranded on the island. He starts reading the Bible, whereas this guy has disobeyed his father. And disobeying the father is like disobeying that traditional patriarchy that it goes up to God. Anyways,
Metin, I saw in the meanwhile that Professoressa Renna, she switched on the camera because she was connected with the camera off because she is like our professor about translation coming from English, but she's a subject expert about health in general, health and medicine. So she,
Okay.
we were talking about health and democracy. She just switched on the camera. I mean, so she's.
Solo contando.
Thank you so much. It's been very interesting, and I would like to congratulate on the whole project. It's really been a pleasure to listen to this conference.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
And I think it's very important to be updated. Yeah, and also for translators. I mean, it is important to have a legal terminology because democracy and human rights affect every side of our lives. So I do believe that being updated and have a specified terminology and understanding, not only words, but having a general understanding of these is a key issue. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I hope I am saying some sensible, like some reasonable, some rational things along the many nonsense like about the democracy. Of course, like cannot like claim that I am an expert on the issue. I'm just a person who has been kind of thinking about, writing about, and sort of trying to analyze, understand what the heck is going on as far as our world is concerned, like we all do, and like all intellectuals are supposed to be doing. Intellectuals actually carry the burden in all the countries. The laymen are happy with their like daily affairs. The Americans, for instance, I mean, give them the popcorn, give them the wages, like burgers and all that like stuff, and the TV and maybe VHS. They still probably are using VHSs rental. So they're gonna be happy. They're gonna be happy. So it is actually torturesome for intellectuals to go through these ideas, to observe these ideas, because I mean they're like Dante's. They're in like Dante's in Dante's work, you know, in between the hell and heaven, the purgatory of people, so to say. So they look at what paradise might be like, and look at also see what people in hell are doing or might be doing. So trying to catch up with one and trying to like notify the other one, that is really a burden. And intellectuals across the world are like Cassandras at the same time. You know, we have this Cassandra complex, you know, in mythology. So you sometimes foresee things, but you're unable to convince the people that this is what is going on. So I think it's quite a burden on everyone. And cosmetics is what matters in international politics most of the time. Let me here remind you of the talks after Caesar is killed in Julius Caesar by Shakespeare. I mean, you have a mass who praise Julius Caesar to the skies because they get the motive, they get the impression that he is the victor who has won all these wars and who has beaten Pompey. Coming back home from with retaining of people around following him, and then you know he's after all a great guy. And this is one aspect of the mass. And then Caesar is killed despite the warnings. And remember, he doesn't listen to his wife because he's a wife, he's a woman. You're not supposed to listen to a woman, otherwise you get emasculated. And it is other men who use that emasculation complex, fear, rather, against you. So masculinity psychosis, he suffers from, and he ends up in suicide. Then, of course, they present his corpse to the public. right? And Brutus explains why he was killed. And the expressions are, not that I hated Caesar, but that I loved Rome more. And the people are listening. And then it is Anthony's turn, and he goes, remember, to the same people in the arena, and he says, these guys are honorable men, and I didn't come here to praise Caesar, but to bury him. So he takes up the floor, and then each time he says anything, the public, of course, opinion changes and changes until the moment now you have a civil strife. I see how the media today operates.
Okay. Yeah. I got another question coming from the YouTube chat, and then I let you go, Metin. Okay. The question is, I'm going to translate, if you think that people now are feeling responsible for their democracy or not. And that's a good question. I don't know if I'm feeling responsible or not about my democracy. So I give the answer to you.
Can I get the question again? People are responsible for democracy?
Are really feeling part of the democracy, are really feeling responsible for the democracy. I mean, if
yes, we
responsible for their democracy or not.
Certainly, we all are responsible for the current situation, because most people consider democracy, and this is even less in the US, because only like less than half the voters in the US go vote for a president. It's mostly 45% of the people eligible to vote in the US go vote for some guy, for their destiny. But the essential problem with democracies, I believe, is, most people have forgotten about how to filter through the news before the elections. And propaganda and news get confused. And another problem is, like, after we vote, we invest all our trust in these guys, and these guys can handle their democratic business with other democratic leaders across the world the way they want, until we realize that, we are going down the shambles. We are going down shambles. So democracy is not a one-time act, I believe. Like, our minds should always filter through the news we hear, we see, we watch every day, or read every day. And then when the time comes, take action. This is not necessarily violent action, but then again, like, use the means available to us. And however, like, individualism, something that capitalism praises so much, puts us apart from one another. And so solidarity sometimes turns into a mass cloning process of the mind, at times. And the people have often think that the majority, if the majority are saying one thing, it must be right. No. Let's remember, when Jesus was there, he was the only one. Yeah. And, against him were the Jewish scholars, and they were powerful, and the Roman leaders deluded by them. But Jesus did succeed, despite his crucifixion.
I like this point of view. It's going to be like, the answer to all the questions, I think.
Yeah. So one person means a lot. We have to believe that we mean something. We are somebodies. And those guys who seem to be powerful get their power from us. So it is not them who have the power.
It's us, no?
Yeah.
Metin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
These 2 days with you has been, really meaningful for everyone, no? Because we have this point of view. I really hope to have you to join us at the university in the very near future, actually.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Okay, I am very pleased indeed. I mean, this is the first time we have been meeting even virtually, but somehow I feel like I have been talking to you guys spiritually. I don't know how to express it. I mean, you look so close to me.
Because we are welcoming, actually. That's Italian hospitality, and I didn't take you to the lunch, so it made it.
Okay, that's what I thought. I mean, I didn't feel when I was in the US.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So, Metin, thank you very much. We're going to keep in touch because I need to send you some paper
Yes. Okay.
in the next couple of days. On behalf of myself and the university in general, really thank you for staying with us for these 2 days. I know that the students really enjoy it. So thank you very much, and I hope to have you here again. Okay.
Thank you, guys. You take care and be good, be healthy all the time.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.